All right. Hello. I am Brian McCann, the Oracle lawyer. And today I want to talk about the Arizona loophole. And the title of this video is going to be Forget AI. The existential threat to the legal industry is the Arizona loophole. Couple of ground rules. And let me explain my background. I am new to the law. So I had a career prior in other fields, prior to coming to the law. I did night law school. So my perspective is not that of every other attorney. It is more that of the general public. So when I see attorneys talking about the Arizona loophole, usually what they talk about is, can you believe that people who are not attorneys are investing in law firms? And it comes down to some argument of this is becoming idiocracy, and then they argue for protectionist methods to save jobs. And that is a valid point, but that point has been discussed time and time again. And that point is also only tailored to other lawyers. And I say this because if you look at any polling, not conducted by a pro-attorney group, but conducted by any non-biased group, attorneys have among the lowest approval ratings or satisfaction ratings amongst the general public, amongst our clients. And even though you may be well liked in your field of law, everyone has had a messy divorce, a messy custody situation, a bad attorney here, a bad transaction there, a frivolous lawsuit here, a frivolous lawsuit there. Those leave bad taste in people's mouths. Also, I come from a real estate background. There are millions of realtors in this country who feel like the legal industry chopped them at the knee. The same thing with medical doctors. Medical doctors largely do not enjoy lawyers. Granted, there is always going to be exceptions to that rule. However, I've had not one or two, but dozens of conversations with medical doctors who absolutely express disdain for attorneys. So the odds are stacked against us. There's a reason why the approval ratings are very low. Now that we've covered that and that's out of the way, I want to talk about why the Arizona loophole is actually an existential threat to the legal industry. And not to other attorneys, but to our clients, to the quality of everything we do, to the quality and the skill that we bring to our clients. Because everything is about our clients. It's not about your job, not about my job, not about the industry, not about kids in law school. What are they going to do? Everything is about our clients. And not always corporate clients, because corporate clients are going to be the first ones moving to AI and getting rid of those jobs. So I'm sorry to tell you, if you're in M&A, if you're in insurance defense, odds are if a large corporation is the one giving you the business, they actively are looking for ways to cut your job already with AI. So that's just a fact. That's common sense. That's how business works. They're going to look for inefficiency and cut. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about today is the existential crisis that the Arizona loophole creates for the entire legal community. So to understand completely why this is an existential threat, we actually have to look at the medical community. Why do I say the medical community? Because the medical community has already been transformed by private equity and outside investment. Most states have anti-corporation laws. And that meant that a doctor or doctors have to own the practices that treat patients. However, as loopholes were created, as legislation expanded, as everything occurred, there was what's called managed care organizations and all sorts of carve-outs that really allowed outside investment, hedge funds, private equity, others to come in. Since that has happened, the net result has been a negative. And I will go over some specific examples of what I mean. But first, I want to give you an idea of what most people, and especially if you're an attorney above age 50, what most people think when they think of a doctor? They think of someone who's a real stalwart, who does no harm, who lives on a set of principles and ethics. So here's a clip that I think shows that and shows what we like to think everyone thinks a doctor is.
What's the name of that son of a bitch from Farkas Pavilion again?
Ives, sir. Elroy Ives. Somebody got to ream his ass.
I'm gonna ream his ass. I'm gonna break that Welbeck's back. I'll defrock those two cannibals. They will never again practice in this hospital, I'll tell you that.
Now, if you're a young person just coming into the market and your experience with medicine is going to a supermarket to see your doctor, because that's where they are, or if you've had minor things happening, let's say you have, your gallbladder removed and you go to one hospital and you get bills from not one or two, but 7, 8, 9 different providers, one for the doctor, one for the hospital, one for the anesthesiologist, one for the aftercare, one for the pre-care, one for the follow-up. It absolutely ruins the experience. And that coincides directly with the rise of private equity into the medical field. So I'm going to give you an example of how most young people, and this is tongue-in-cheek obviously, what they think of the medical industry broadly right now, especially people who have to deal with medical bills and they don't know where they're coming from, and they really feel like, they're getting the shaft from the medical community.
Hey, Owen, it turns out that Blake here never went to medical school. We're just going to add him to your interns today. Call it even.
Fine. Welcome to the team. Blood pressure 50/80. White blood cell count elevated. Slight fever. What's the call?
Too soon to tell.
God, you are good.
Look, I don't want to interrupt here, and you're one of our best, but isn't this clearly a knife wound?
Hey, Suit, you stay out of my way. The knife is just a small piece of the puzzle. We got to figure out what's really wrong with this kid. Nadi. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
It's Nidhi.
I do not care. I need.
So that's satirical. However, it's a lot of the sentiment that people feel. It just is. And it's a lot of the sentiment that people feel when they get 7, 8, 9 different bills for one small thing. And the reason for that is private equities come in. It's not about the patient anymore. Maybe it's never been about the patient, but right now it's not about the patient. Everyone knows that. If you're a doctor and you're on my feed, I apologize. You yourself are probably very, very good at what you do. That doesn't mean that the colossus behind you that is creating all these companies and shell companies and billing and shell billing and all this is not up to it. So the reality is the numbers do not lie. So let me share some numbers with you. All right, so I'm pretty good, but I need to change so I can actually read what I'm citing. So for instance, here's just within the nursing home sector, okay? And it looks at what has happened since the rise of outside investment into that field. So there was a study by the NBER, and it used Medicare data, and it found that PE ownership of nursing homes leads to lower risk patients being admitted, yet mortality increases. There was a local average treatment effect of 11% higher mortality, even with lower risk patients being admitted. So Atul Gupta is an economist, and in 2021 he found that PE, private equity, acquisitions of nursing homes over a 12-year period increased resident deaths by 10%. That's an equivalent of 20,150 lives lost. There was a separate study of over 12,400 skilled nursing facilities, and 1,674 of them were private equity acquired. And they found the mortality rate increased of 10% during the resident stay and in the 90 days after. There was also a concentrated number, which was 50% greater likelihood of being prescribed antipsychotics not recommended for older adults. You're going to see this time and time and time again. That's just the nursing home industry. So let's go down into the hospital industry, where they look at, let's see, Harvard Medical School. Harvard Medical School study published in the Annals of Internal Medicine in September 2025, so very recently. They analyzed over a decade of Medicare data covering 100% of emergency and ICU admissions from 2009 to 2019. And they compared 49 private equity acquired hospitals to 293 control hospitals. And they found that mortality rates rise, frontline staffing falls, and patient safety declines, especially in emergency departments and ICUs. There was another study, 2003, JAMA. It found that PE ownership was associated with a 25% increase in hospital-acquired conditions such as infections and falls. So what you need to see is that even though the amount of funding that has come in, and even though they tried to increase the amount of people coming in the door, the amount of help, the amount of doctors, the amount of nurses, the quality of care have all gone down. Mortality has gone up. Preventable things like infections and slips and falls in a hospital have gone up. So what I think you really need to understand is that before we even talk about the legal industry, this has decimated the medical industry. And we're inviting the same exact thing into the legal industry. So this is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but to better understand, and if you're a fan of The Big Short, I think you'll like this. To better understand, and if you're a fan of The Big Short, I think you'll like this. To better understand how the Arizona loophole works, let's go to Margot Robbie in a bathtub.
Patronize me if it,
Mortgage-backed securities, subprime loans, tranches. It's pretty confusing, right? Does it make you feel bored or stupid? Well, it's supposed to. Wall Street loves to use confusing terms to make you think only they can do what they do. Or even better, for you just to leave them the fuck alone. So here's Margot Robbie in a bubble bath to explain.
Basically, Louis Rainieri's mortgage bonds were amazingly profitable.
Obviously, Margot Robbie is not talking about the Arizona loophole in that scene. She's talking about mortgage-backed securities. Nonetheless, the point is, it's real easy to get twisted and turned and to make this something that is not tangible to the average person, much less the average attorney. What you need to understand is that for most of human history, or American history, or the last 100 years, only attorneys could own law firms. That changed, and it changed in a couple of states. One's Arizona, the other Utah. Utah has pulled a lot of it back and was a lot less aggressive in what they passed. Arizona, however, has allowed outside interest to come in and buy. So you'll hear stories about, this person was a convicted felon, or, this husband of a real housewife of wherever owns a law firm called 10X Law. And I don't want to get dragged down into that because it's very easy for this to become an elitist, smarmy kind of argument that they have not been anointed a priest by the priesthood class. Our entire society right now, moving forward, is doing away with artificial distinctions. You see it in real estate. I'm not sure if you can find a travel agent anymore. You're going to see it in everything. When's the last time that you went to a toll booth and had a toll booth operator? They largely don't exist. Same thing. Try to find someone to actually bag your groceries at the grocery store. They don't exist. And that's not saying that lawyers are the same as those. It's just saying that fields where there are gatekeepers and fields where there are artificial barriers to entry or real barriers to entry are going to get whittled down. They'll still exist, but not at the way they exist now. What I'm talking about is an existential threat to our existence. And the reason for that is because just like the medical field, you're going to see the care go down and down and down. And also, there is another core reason that we'll dive into deep, which is, think about this. Largely, private equity firms are investing in who? Who are they investing in? Plaintiff firms. So let's say you have a large private equity firm that is in league with maybe a hedge fund and whoever, and this is a subset that basically advertises and does whatever, and they provide technology. Think about the amount of data that they have. So let's say they're suing a large company. Let's say they are suing, McDonald's. Maybe there's a big McDonald's thing. Or let's say they have advanced knowledge that, they are going to go and they are really cooking up a big products liability lawsuit. Having that advanced knowledge before anyone else has it, that allows you to front ride the market with short sales. This is absolutely going to, not maybe, it is absolutely going to take any trust that's left in the legal market and erode it completely. And that has nothing to do with AI. If you're fighting AI, you're just fighting the future. That has nothing to do with the fact that, I paid money for my law degree and this guy's a felon. No one cares. No one cares. What they do care about is if the entire credibility of the system that's been built not only over 100 years, but over hundreds of years in multiple continents gets washed away because of some greed. So let's go through exactly what I'm talking about. All right, so according to the research I have, you literally have everything from Fortress Investment Group to groups owned by Franklin Templeton Investments to groups owned by KPMG and numerous other companies. It's only a matter of time before all the large multinational conglomerates come into this space. The problem is, when this occurs, the quality for the average person goes down. If you take that and you combine it with AI, what you are going to have is a world where there are a few, and I say a few, large law firms, and their equity partners will be fine. There will be no one else. So even on the insurance defense side, they are not going to pay a junior associate $100, $125, $150,000 to do work. It is getting upended. And I know you're going to say, well, we'll always have depositions. We'll always have this. Will you? Will you? I don't think you will. Money controls the day. If you do not stop this now, it's over. Not only is it over, it's long over. And it's not over in 10 years. I know there's a lot of people that run firms that think, well, it's good I'm retiring in 10 years. It's not over in 10 years. It's not over in 5 years. It's over starting today. So what you need to do is understand completely the Arizona loophole represents an existential threat to who you are as an attorney and the field generally. It also represents an existential threat potentially to capitalism. I understand that your argument is going to be, well, how could this be an existential threat to capitalism if it's capital being invested? Why? Because if you have the ability and you have the data to bring massive lawsuits and front run it and short and long and do all these things with that proprietary data, that may not be illegal necessarily. I know in your head you're thinking that's probably illegal. It may not be illegal. However, it certainly does not increase trust in the legal community. Eventually, this thing, it just disintegrates in front of our eyes. And there's a lot of people in the world who want to see that happen. There's a lot of people in the world who are fine letting the world burn just as long as they get on the next, plane out of town. So what I want lawyers to understand, when you're making this argument, do not make it based on a class argument. Do not make it based on an argument that they don't have specialized degrees and they have not been anointed. The argument you need to make is this is worse for our customers. Just like in medicine where staffing went down, funding went up, but staffing went down, mortality went way up, and quality of care went way down. The same thing is going to happen in law. I don't care if it's PI, MedMail, anything. It's absolutely going to happen. Also, what do you think occurs when the hedge funds who do this have heavy positions and people you need to sue? You're not going to be able to sue certain companies. And you know that. It's going to be internal pressure. We could pretend like that's not the case, but that's absolutely the case. So please, I implore you, focus. Focus on what's happening. What's happening is not a classist issue about AI. What's happening is the entire field is being upended. And it's being upended like every other field has been upended by big money. And the end result is we're all going to be Uber drivers or Grubhub drivers or Lyft drivers. We're going to be paid for a task-based thing. We won't have benefits. We won't have insurance. We won't have retirement. Why? Because someone needs an extra $1 billion. And that's what they're doing because it's their job to make their money work for them. It's our job to protect our industry in rational ways. And you can't do that by saying, no, no, no. You can do that by making sure more states don't adopt these loopholes and going to Arizona and fighting to make sure that those loopholes get closed. Thank you. I hope this was helpful in some way. Once again, I'm Brian McCann. Like, follow, and share for more.